Hello, and thank you for joining us today in our studies of 1 Samuel. Today we are in 1 Samuel chapter 6, and having read the chapter yesterday, we want to go through today and examine some of the things that we can learn from and some of the things that occur in 1 Samuel chapter 6. And this morning I want us to look at three different things that I think are important for us to remember when it comes to this particular chapter. Obviously, the Philistines have the Ark of the Covenant in their possession. They have captured it in battle, but they have decided that they do not want to keep the Ark due to the very grievous problems that continue to happen every time the Ark gets moved from one place to another. Whether it be the image of Dagon in his temple falling and breaking overnight for no apparent reason, or whether it be the tumors that seem to be following everywhere they go, or when it comes to 1 Samuel chapter 6, you also seem to have the problem based upon the information there of infestations of rats and things of that nature that have hit every city that the Ark of the Covenant has come into. And so as you come into chapter 6, you're going to have a return policy that's going to take effect when it comes to the Philistines and the Ark of the Covenant. And let's look at a couple of different things as we go through and examine this particular chapter. When you look at what transpires, you have, first of all, in verse number 3, a very interesting statement. Because here the priests of the Philistines and the Philistine leaders decide that what they need to do is they need to make a trespass offering. They need to make an offering to basically say, we're sorry for doing this. Remember, trespass here is a violation or an offense that has been committed. And so they decide that they can't just give the ark back, but if they truly want the favor of God, and if they want all of the different things that have been going on to cease, then they need to send away with a trespass offering. And it's stated in verse number 3, they believe, then you will be healed, and it will be known to you why his hand is not removed from you. In other words, send it back with a token of your apologies for having done this, and everything will go back to normal and everything will be okay. So they determined to send 5 golden tumors and 5 golden rats as the trespass offering with the ark. Now, obviously, to us, that particular token of apology being in the sign of the maladies that have been brought upon your people, might not be considered to be the greatest gift that one could offer in apology for doing this. And yet, at the same time, it is meant to be an offering that indicates where the offense has seemed to have had an impact, in that it has affected with the tumors and with the infestation of rats. And so while they would be by no means lovely to behold, and you certainly wouldn't be putting them on the mantle to be able to show them off to all of your friends, it is a sincere message of saying we desperately want all of these things to go away. And as such, we certainly do not wish any further offense to go with them. So they make this plan to send the Ark of the Covenant back. And they place it on a cart with 2 oxen, and they also will utilize this as a sign that if the cows, the milking cows, not oxen, but if the cows go over the hill directly toward Beth Shemesh, then it would be a recognition that it was God that was doing this all along, and that it wasn't just happenstance. Well, they put the ark and the gifts on the cart, and immediately the cows start heading for Beth Shemesh without any guidance whatsoever. And so the 5 lords of the Philistines are going to take that as a sign that this is God's will in all of it. They are also going to follow behind to make sure that it gets to the proper location. And the location is, as we've already stated, this town of Beth Shemesh. Now, Beth Shemesh is going to be on the western border of Israel, and it's going to be on one of those border towns with the land of the Philistines. It is an Israelite settlement. It is an Israelite city at this particular time, though there isn't any indication that it has this gigantic population, which is going to lead us into something that we're going to talk about in just a few moments later on in chapter 6. But Beth Shemesh is Israelite. It's not Philistine. In chapter 5, they're sending it to the different cities of the Philistines, and the same thing keeps happening over and over again. When the people of Beth Shemesh see this, they are overjoyed that the ark has been returned. And they are going to immediately tear down the cart and build an altar with it, and they're going to take the cows and they're going to use them as sacrifices to God, as burnt offerings to God in thanks for the ark being returned and in expressions of their joy and of their gratefulness. And so this town, which is many miles away from Shiloh, which is where the tabernacle is at this point, is going to be the first town to which the ark is going to return. But that's not where the situation is going to end, because we also find in the latter section of chapter 6 that the people of Beth Shemesh are going to be struck with a plague, as it were. There's going to be problems that are going to come upon them because of the fact that, as verse 19 says, they looked into the ark of the Lord. Other versions will say they looked upon the ark of the Lord. Now, there is quite a bit of controversy or quite a bit of discussion as to what exactly it is that takes place, and not the least of which with the numbers that are discussed. There are some versions that mention that the Lord struck down 50,070 men of the people. There are others that simply leave it at 70 men. And that's quite a difference of 50,000 between the one and the other. The likelihood seems to be that it was actually 70 men that were struck down. And the reason for that is we recognize Beth Shemesh is not a large city to begin with. And that 50,000 men would have been an enormous amount, an enormous percentage of the population of Israel at this particular time, far more than would have been gathered at this particular place. And so whether there's a distinction where there were some scribal errors in transmitting things at various times, or whatever the case might be, we don't know what the exact number was, but we tend to think that the correct number, as it would be recorded, would be that idea of 70 men that would have been struck down. And they would have struck down for looking upon or looking into the ark. God had given strict instructions that in Numbers chapter 4 and various other places, that when the ark was to be moved and when the ark was to be carried, that it was to be covered, and that people were not to be looking upon or opening up or gazing into the ark of the covenant and all of these various things. And the indication is they got so carried away with all of their joy and all of the festivities that a number of them did exactly what they were told not to do. God is not trying to continue to take out on them what happened with the Philistines, but rather there were commands that had been given and there were orders that were in place as to how the Ark of the Covenant was to be treated. And even in their jubilation, when they mistreated the Ark of the Covenant, the commandments were still in place and the laws were still in place, and those laws were going to be upheld. When this takes place, they decide that they don't really want the ark to stay there either. So they decide to send messengers to Kirjath-jearim to let them know that the Philistines have brought back the ark of the Lord. Please come and get it. Please come and take it with you. And that is where we will pick up in 1 Samuel chapter 7 next time. There's a lot of things that we could talk about here in chapter 6. It's a very fascinating account of how the Philistines, they knew the story of the children of Israel. They knew about the things that had happened in Egypt and with the crossing of the Red Sea and the various things of that nature. They also knew the power of God, and that God was not going to leave them alone until he received the Ark of the Covenant back in the hands of Israel. But we also see the importance of the responsibilities that even in joy and thanksgiving, we make sure that we are doing things as the Lord commanded, and not just however we see fit. So there's a lot of things to see in chapter 6, and I hope that some of the things that we've talked about today will be beneficial to you. Next time we'll come back and we will look at the text of 1 Samuel chapter 7. But until then, I hope you have a great day.